October 18th, 1992. The Atlanta Falcons are in San Francisco taking a brutal 56-17 loss against the 49ers. It might have been less of a beatdown if their first-team All-Pro defender wasn't currently occupied. He's a bit busy playing Game 2 of the World Series in Atlanta against the Toronto Blue Jays, going 1 for 3 with 2 walks and a run scored. You see, he couldn't be in both places at the same time because there is only one Deion Sanders. The only athlete to play in both a Super Bowl and a World Series, the time of his prime also happens to coincide with an era of Colorado sports where the Rockies and Avalanche came into existence, one of the greatest quarterbacks in NFL history rose to the top, and the Colorado Buffaloes roamed wild. Join us over the next several weeks as we take a deep dive into this golden era for Deion Sanders and for sports at a mile high. This is when Colorado went primetime. The legend of Deion Sanders takes root at Florida State, where from 1985 to 1989 he was an All-American football player, a conference champion track athlete, and the center fielder for the team that finished 5th in the nation. He was actually taken by the Kansas City Royals in the 1985 MLB draft, where in an alternate universe he would have shared the field with fellow two-sport star Bo Jackson. During the second half of the 80s, Sanders broke some records at FSU. CU football began a renaissance that lasted 12 years. The Denver Nuggets made the playoffs every season, and the stage was being set for professional hockey and baseball to come to Denver. Sanders was ultimately taken by the New York Yankees in the 1988 MLB draft and the Atlanta Falcons in the 1989 NFL draft. It was the second time in the decade that the Yankees had selected a future football Hall of Famer after taking Stanford pitcher John Elway in the first round of 1981. Instead of playing baseball, Elway decided to lead the Broncos to the AFC Championship in his 3rd, 4th, and 6th seasons. Sanders, though, wouldn't give up hardball quite so easily. On May 31st, 1989, at just 21 years of age, Deion Sanders made his major league debut for the New York Yankees against the Seattle Mariners, going 1 for 4 with an RBI. On June 4th, he hit his first MLB home run in just his 5th game played, and on June 15th, Major League Baseball announced expansion by 2 teams. He would finish that year with 14 games played, a 92 OPS plus 2 home runs and 7 RBI. That summer, the Denver Nuggets finished 44-38, making the playoffs for the 8th straight time but losing in the first round to the Phoenix Suns. Alex English made his final All-Star Game appearance and finished the 80s as the NBA's top scorer. That fall, on September 10th, Deion Sanders made his NFL debut with an 83-yard touchdown return. He had his first interception the next week against Dallas and finished his rookie season with 1,052 return yards, a touchdown, and 5 interceptions. That year, the Denver Broncos went 11-5, and CU football had their first 11-win season ever, setting the stage for the 90s. The 90s began in bittersweet heartbreak for Colorado football fans. On the very first day of the new decade, the Buffaloes lost to Notre Dame in the Orange Bowl, ending their otherwise undefeated season on a sad note, while the Denver Broncos similarly finished off a magical run into the Super Bowl by taking the most lopsided loss in the history of the big game. There wasn't a ton of solace to be found on the hard court, where the Nuggets headed toward their 2nd consecutive first-round sweep out of the playoffs. That year, Denver voters did approve a sales tax to build a new ballpark, but it was a down year for Deion Sanders on the diamond, posting his worst MLB numbers ever across 57 games for a Yankees team that only won 67 games. On the gridiron, though, at just 23 years old, Sanders set a standard he would reach only one other time by amassing 1,254 all-purpose yards. He added 3 more picks and 2 more touchdowns, but the Atlanta Falcons faded to a 5-11 record. The team he now coaches remained unfazed, as the Buffaloes wreaked havoc through the winter and fall, using an infamous 5-down game to set up a rematch with the Irish for the Orange. On January 1st, 1991, the Colorado Buffaloes beat Notre Dame 10-9 in the Orange Bowl, earning a share of the national championship in one of the greatest moments in Colorado sports history. At the end of that month, their current coach Deion Sanders signed with the Atlanta Braves after being granted free agency by the Yankees. He would play 54 games that year and hit 191 with 4 home runs and 11 stolen bases. Over in the NFL, though, he put up 6 interceptions, 746 return yards, earned his first Pro Bowl appearance, and was second-team All-Pro. The Denver Broncos recovered from a 5-11 1990 campaign by going 12-4 in 91 and would lose in the AFC Championship to the Buffalo Bills. Following 9 consecutive playoff appearances under head coach Doug Moe, the Denver Nuggets went 20-62 with Paul Westhead. CU followed up their best season ever by going 8-3-1. And that December, Sanders added his first playoff victory over the Saints in the NFC wildcard game, adding 85 yards on a kick return, a punt return, and an interception. 1992 was the year of Deion Sanders. He had by far his best season in baseball. Despite Atlanta stubbornly insisting upon benching him early on in the postseason, they were essentially forced to play him in the World Series, where he was arguably their best player, tallying 8 hits, 4 runs scored, 2 walks, and 2 doubles in 4 games, simultaneously, at least at first. Primetime was also putting up one of his best seasons in the NFL, matching a career-high 1,254 all-purpose yards and being named first-team All-Pro. The Denver Broncos were mediocre, with a record of 8-8 in what turned out to be the final season for head coach Dan Reeves. The Denver Nuggets remained awful under Paul Westhead, and his 2-year tenure was quickly ended. After losing by 5 to Alabama in the Blockbuster Bowl, CU Buffs football went 9-2-1 to earn their 5th straight bowl appearance. But the most impactful moment in Colorado sports probably happened on June 30th when Eric Lindros was traded from the Quebec Nordiques to the Philadelphia Flyers in exchange for 5 players, 2 first-round draft picks, and the rights to a Swedish prospect named Peter Forsberg. On April 5, 1993, the Colorado Rockies played their first baseball game in New York against the Mets, and 4 days later, Eric Young provided the most memorable moment of their homecoming to Denver. The rest of that season was pretty downhill, outside of setting an attendance record that most experts think will never be broken, and Andres Galarraga winning the batting title. Deion had another good year on the diamond, by the way, with above-average offense and defense. He played 95 games for an Atlanta team that won 104 games but only got 3 at-bats in the postseason. Over in the NFL, Primetime made his 3rd straight Pro Bowl and came in 3rd for Defensive Player of the Year, thanks in large part to his 7 interceptions. The Denver Broncos went 9-7 under Wade Phillips and lost to the Raiders in the AFC wildcard game, but there was some solace in that they drafted Jason Elam that year. The Denver Nuggets made moderate improvements, but still missed the playoffs under new head coach Dan Issel, and on Christmas Day, the CU Buffs beat Fresno State 41-30 in the Aloha Bowl, their 2nd bowl win in their 6th straight appearance. In 1994, Deion Sanders left Atlanta, finding his way to the Reds of Cincinnati and the 49ers of San Francisco. On the diamond, he put up career highs with 58 runs scored and 38 stolen bases, but that paled in comparison to the year he had on the gridiron, grabbing 6 interceptions, returning 3 of those for touchdowns, making his 5th Pro Bowl, being named first-team All-Pro, placing 3rd in MVP voting, and being named the Defensive Player of the Year for the eventual Super Bowl winners. The Broncos and Rockies both missed the playoffs, but the Denver Nuggets stole the spotlight and provided one of the most memorable moments in Colorado sports history when they surprised the Seattle Supersonics and the world with an unlikely upset, complete with Dikembe Mutombo's iconic celebration. The Colorado Buffaloes won 11 games for the 3rd time ever, all under head coach Bill McCartney, behind the rushing genius of Rashaan Salaam, the only Heisman winner in school history. Until now. They trounced Notre Dame in the Fiesta Bowl, after which Coach McCartney retired, ending a golden era. In 1995, the Colorado Rockies celebrated the opening of Coors Field by becoming the fastest expansion team in MLB history to reach the postseason, as the Blake Street Bombers took the state by storm and Dante Bichette was robbed of the NL MVP award. They would lose in the first round to the eventual World Series champs, who just happened to have 3 Hall of Famers at starting pitcher. Deion Sanders was traded in July from the Reds to the Giants and produced a 1.5 win campaign overall. And while he did have a down year statistically thanks to a knee injury after signing a record deal with the Dallas Cowboys, he helped win a Super Bowl for a 2nd straight season. The Broncos and Nuggets both missed the playoffs, a disappointing follow-up to Mutombo's moment on the hard court, and CU football went 10-2, obliterating Oregon in the Cotton Bowl under new head coach Rick Neuheisel. And on October 6, 1995, the Colorado Avalanche played their first game ever, defeating the Detroit Red Wings 3-2, and started to establish a super team, featuring icons like Joe Sakic, Peter Forsberg, and a goalie they would soon acquire via trade, Patrick Waugh. In 1996, Deion Sanders didn't play baseball, focusing on football where he returned to form and the Pro Bowl, though his Cowboys were upset by the Panthers, starting a streak of playoff ineptitude that persists to this day. The Broncos, in their 2nd season under Mike Shanahan, saw Terrell Davis rise to elite status, winning Offensive Player of the Year, though they also suffered a devastating playoff loss to the Jaguars after a 10-3 campaign had them marked as massive favorites. The Rockies had another winning season, and this time Ellis Burks was overlooked for national honors, while the Denver Nuggets plummeted to a 21-61 record, largely under the leadership of Bernie Bickerstaff. Colorado Buffaloes had their 2nd straight 10-win season and bowl victory, taking the Holiday Bowl over the Washington Huskies. And on June 10th, the Colorado Avalanche went from the new kids in town to the big dogs in the yard, welcoming themselves to Denver by winning Lord Stanley's Cup in their very first try, thanks in no small part to Conn Smythe winner Joe Sakic. The 1997 Colorado Rockies had their third straight winning season and their third straight legit MVP candidate, this time with Larry Walker actually winning the award for the only time in franchise history. Deion returned to the diamond and oddly enough played a career-high 115 games, hitting .273, and made his Coors Field debut. And in football earned his 5th first-team All-Pro nod. The Nuggets hit rock bottom with an 11-win season under coach Bill Hanslick. Colorado Buffaloes went 5-6, their first losing season in 13 years, and the Colorado Avalanche finished up their magical first season by winning their division and the President's Trophy, but could not complete the repeat, falling to the Red Wings in the conference finals. And after their disappointing loss a year prior and a career full of almosts for their star quarterback, the Denver Broncos, led by Pro Bowlers John Elway, Terrell Davis, Shannon Sharpe, and Tom Nalen, defeated NFL MVP Brett Favre and his Green Bay Packers in Super Bowl 32. In 1998, the Denver Nuggets under Mike D'Antoni continued to struggle mightily, and the Rockies were sub-500 despite some monster seasons from the Bombers, leading to the exit of manager Don Baylor. Deion once again didn't play baseball, but was an All-Pro for the Cowboys and finished 5th in Defensive Player of the Year voting. The Colorado Avalanche continued to be fantastic, winning the Pacific Division, but suffered a disappointing first-round loss to the Edmonton Oilers. The CU Buffs went 8-4 and defeated the Ducks in an Aloha Bowl shootout, ending the tenure of Rick Neuheisel. But 1998 was all about the Denver Broncos, who lost only 2 games all season. They sent all of Terrell Davis, Ed McCaffrey, Shannon Sharpe, Tony Jones, Mark Schlereth, Bill Romanowski, Jason Elam, and Steve Atwater to the Pro Bowl. But in the end, all eyes were on John Elway, who ended his Hall of Fame career with 51,475 passing yards, 300 touchdowns, and a Super Bowl MVP award for the 5th back-to-back champions in NFL history. By 1999, the prime era was coming to a close. Deion Sanders made his final of 8 Pro Bowls in his 5th and final season for the Dallas Cowboys. He then played a forgettable season for Washington in 2000 before retiring, then unretiring from both baseball and football for a brief stint before calling it a career. He posted a grand total of 5.5 wins above replacement, which is almost exactly the same as Dante Bichette, so do with that what you will, and of course would go down as one of the best defenders in NFL history. The Nuggets made improvements with Dan Issel back at head coach, but still missed the playoffs, as did the Rockies, despite Larry Walker winning his 2nd batting title, and the team being managed by, and I swear this is true, Hall of Famer Jim Leyland. The Broncos felt the departure of John Elway and managed just a 6-win season, and as would become custom, the Avs were a bright spot, but also as would become custom, they would lose to the Dallas Stars in the conference finals. The CU Buffs did get a bowl win under new head coach Gary Barnett in the Insight.com Bowl, which I've been assured was a real thing, ending the 90s on a high note. After the 90s, apart from a magical run in 2007, the local ball club became more or less an afterthought. And while the Carmelo Anthony era was brimming with possibility, it was never fully realized, and the Nuggets would infamously only get past the first round of the playoffs once. The Broncos remained fixtures in the playoffs, but took 13 years and one Peyton Manning to return to championship form. The Buffs had a decent stretch under Barnett, winning another bowl game in 2004, but that would be the last one for 20 years, and they would only appear in 3 more. Similarly, the Avs scored their 2nd title in 2001 before going on their own 20-year drought. And look, it is almost certainly a cosmic coincidence, but since Deion was named the head coach at Colorado, the Avs and Nuggets have won titles, the latter doing so for the first time in franchise history, and the Broncos appear to have finally returned to form after 8 consecutive playoff-less campaigns. But what isn't a coincidence is that after losing seasons in 14 of the last 15 years, the Buffs are back to looking how they did when Colorado went to primetime.